Alright, so welcome back to another Flask tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll keep building on where we left off from last video, which is building a note-taking web application. Okay, so now, let's just do a quick recap on what we did. So if you haven't watched the first video, I will link the first video into it in the description below, where I will link a card. And then if you take a look, basically what we work on is set up the Google OAuth. And then we have a client key and a client secrets. Notice that I'm going to start using the OS module from Python, and then the getIn function. So basically, it's a way to get environment variable in Python. And the environment variable is you need to type something in the terminal, like export your key here equals to something in Mac or in PC. It should be like set key equals value. In this case, I just like set up all the two Google Client ID and Google Client Secret environment variable. All right, and then now if we take a look on what this looks like, we could go to 127, blah, blah, and then here I can just go to login, and then let's just refresh again, and then you can see we are attempt to log in. I can log in using my Gmail account. And then it said didn't return valid response because I removed that part. But if we take a look, what should it look like? Which let us try again. And by the way, I think I figured out the correct way of using OBS Studio. Please let me know if it's still laggy or not. I don't think it's like, I think like audio and the video should sync now. And then now you can see we have the access token. And this access token is important because later we will actually use the access token to get users information. Alright, so now here it says return. We'll go and create a variable called access token, and we'll try to get the access token from this JSON data. And then it's located, we can get using this key, access token. Alright. And then now what we can do is we can actually get the user's information, specifically one user's name. I don't think we could get user's email anymore, but with like this scope. So we'll just get user's name, maybe profile picture as well. We don't even need to get their email, to be honest, because like we're not dealing with emailing anything. So here what we could do is something like this. And we can say r equals request dot get, and then here we'll just say something like this. We're gonna use the f string, and I'm gonna send a get request to this specific URL, googleaps.com/oauth2/v2/user-info, and then our access token is going to be equals to access token here. And then in here, just say equals to .json. And then now, let's go ahead and take a look. What's that look like? What's like this? What's the request after a return? So if I just try to refresh the page, okay. I think I had to do the login all over again. Alright, let's click on here. Dict has no attribute called JSON. Oh, I already JSONified this already. Okay. So maybe that explains. Alright, so I can't try again. I hope it didn't like overflow my requests. But now I can see here is the information I got. I got my name, my ID. This is important. We're actually going to use this Google ID as well. We'll also have my profile picture right here. Right here is pretty huge. And then we got the full name here. Alright. So now what we want to do is actually save them into a database. I'm going to save the user's information to a database. So in here, just going to use the most simple database ever called SQLite database. And in here we could do is we'll go ahead and actually open up database. And then, so I recommend you to download DB browser for DB SQLite. I think that's what it's called. And then we're gonna, like, it's more like a GUI version for a database, so you can take a look better. And then you can see it's loading here, and then we see our database here. So now what we could do is we could create some table and rows. And then just in case you haven't heard of SQL before, SQL structured query language is a database language. Essentially, it's a way for like handling, like store information to the database. And then we're gonna use SQL for sure. And then, so now first SQL is built on the idea of table. So what we could do is we could create a table, and then let's just call this user. And then usually we'll start with a user ID, and then usually this ID will be like a primary key. But in this case, since it's already provided by Google, we're going to use the Google's user ID, and then we're not going to do anything special here. So user ID, and then we also want the name, and then the picture as well, the profile picture. So we need, let's just take it as ID. So we have ID, name, and photo. So these are the three things that's going to store for each user. And let's go write changes. Make sure to click on that. And now if you open a DB SQLite 3 again, you can see you have this undecodable data. But, oh god, it's a little bit hurt my eyes, but you can see you have something here, create table, users, ID text, name text, photo is integer, whoops. Photo is not supposed to be integer, but the code that you just see there is like what code you need to execute to actually create this table in pure SQL. Alright. So now what we could do is we could start to actually add to our create a row into our table. So like each row represent each user basically. And then in here we could do something like this to access a database, SQLite database. We actually have a built-in Python module for that. It's called SQLite 3. So in here, you can just type import SQLite 3. It's a built-in module, so don't worry about pip install it. And in here, we'll go ahead and say something like this. SQLite con equals SQLite 3.connect. And then here, just say db.SQLite 3. This is basically the name. And then we'll provide a optional argument called checkSyncThread. Basically false, so like we could use it, whichever thread we want. Don't worry about that. We're not going to top a thread really. And in here we just say C equals cont'd.cursor. So create a new cursor so we can actually run some SQL code there. Alright, and in here, so now what we could do is we could start to execute some SQL code. So here we could say something like this. C.execute. So basically we can put the native SQL codes here. And then to create a table is really simple. Create a row. We'll just say insert into, because you need to know where do you want to create the row, where do you want to insert the row to, which table, with the users table, and then what columns. So we need to specify all the column name that we created here, which is ID, name, photo. And then what are their respective values? Well, we're actually going to use what we call a placeholder here. You can imagine placeholder just like a variable, and then we will go reference in this parameters. And then this is for like security reason called SQL injection. Don't worry about that much. But in here, you could just say something like this. R bracket ID for ID. Name is a dictionary, so name, R bracket name, and photo. Could do something like picture. So it's picture. And then make sure we commit the changes. So like save it after commit into the database. And then now, and here what we can just do is we're going to do is simply call return success. So it means we create a table successfully. And then now if we try again and take a look, what's that look like? Is sign into my account. and then you can see success. And then now if we take a look into the SQL database, browse data, and then you can see we actually get the name here. We got my ID, my name, and my profile picture here. All right. So now what we'll talk about is store them into a session. Store them into a session. The reason we want to store them into a session is because that then we can use it later, and then we could determine like which user it is. So like you use it later to determine whether the user is logged in or not, and then we could use like maybe want to show the name, we can like use it. So this is where we will go use the idea of session. So session is basically, you can imagine it's a cookie, and then it's a new session for each new like access to our like address, but it's basically where we'll store some information relative to this user. And in this case, we might want to do something like this. And then to actually use session, you need to actually configure a secret key by typing app.config secret key to configure a session. And then here, I'm just going to keep it simple. All right, and then here what we could do is something like this. We could say session bracket username equals to r bracket username session bracket name equals r bracket name, and then session bracket avatar, like the profile picture. Here you can say picture. Alright, and then now this stored into the session, which we could use later. And one more thing we want to build is like, so for every time when a user successfully authenticates via our Google OAuth system, notice that every time it's going to create a user, whether it doesn't care whether it's already in the database or not. So that's probably not good. Probably want to get some information. So we want to check whether do we have a user or not already registered into our database. So we could do something like this. Before we actually insert, we'll go ahead proceed with some user with some SQL query, c.execute. And here just say select. We're gonna use a select query. Basically it's gonna select a row from our database, and here you can say select star from users, where the most unique way to identify is by ID. So you can just say ID, and then ID it's just gonna be r bracket ID. You can say something like this, and then make sure we add fetch all at the end. And then this basically to return something like this, and then it's gonna return a list, and inside array is gonna be tuple, and then each tuple may have like different it will have like each row's information. For example, ID is 1, 2, 3, my name is Boyan, and then maybe my profile picture is example.jpg, for example. It's gonna do something like this. And then what we could do is we could check if the length of the user equals to is not 0. Is not 0. That's mean we already have it. Then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and use the create session, and then store these three properties by using the information that's in our database. For example, user 00 going to give us a username. Want to have user ID, name, and avatar. So it's going to be 012. And then otherwise, if it's not in our database already, we'll probably want to create this. And then we want to go ahead and save it into our database. Okay. So yeah, that's basically what we've done. Again, we basically like save it, create a table, we learn some like SQL table, and then we check whether do some select query, insert query. We check whether to have a row for that user or not. If the user already exists in our database, then we want to skip the part that we want to create a row. Otherwise, we want to create a role and save it to the database. That's a little bit confusing. Maybe that's how I describe it. Sorry about that, but that's basically how it is. And then now we can return success. Or we could do something like this. Yeah, let's just return success for now. And then let's try again. So return /login. And then choose my accounts here. And then you can see we have success. And then now if you try to refresh this table, you can see we have this one row, which means our select query works. All right, so I think that is all we will do for this video. I will briefly I'll briefly preview what we'll do in next video, which is probably start to actually work on. We will go ahead and build some HTML templates. So you can see right now just using raw text as our return value. We'll build some HTML templates and then we can return that. And then maybe we'll talk about S3 as well. But that's about it for this video. If you like it, feel free to like and subscribe to this channel, and then make sure to submit my raffle form as well. I already sent some requests of additional information about the raffle. So if you submit the raffle form, please make sure to check the email. Thanks for watching and subscribing and liking. Make sure you leave a comment below if you have any questions. And see you in the next video. Bye bye.